Avenue, son of a bitch. You've done it again. Winked and smiled about being a good, caring Democrat. But when the chips are really down, it's down with the people. There's still no Medi-Cal for all, and more drilling for all, and more plunder of the state coffers. Where did the money go? Oh, where did the surplus go? It happened so quick, yeah. Just a few natural disasters, and there's no more money for schools. Oh, you think that we're fools for wanting you to help with basic needs. Oh, fools indeed. Fools indeed. And then Oregon helps show the way, and that there's no place for the homeless to stay. Now California wants to join in. Let's make the homeless homeless again. Tear down those tents, back up your stuff. He's had enough. Now this is campaign slogan tough. Let's make the homeless homeless again. But where will they go? Who really cares? Who really knows? Oh, but this is compassion in action. This is the Democrats caring about you more than you know. Hey, vote blue no matter who. And maybe next year when you're out of a job and a home, and you and all of your possessions on a sidewalk, now you can count on blue. That's the boys in blue to come and say, move it along. Tear down those tents, pack up your stuff. He's had enough. Now this is campaign slogan tough. Let's make the homeless homeless again. We've got a mandate from the state. Hey, hey, make the homeless homeless again. Let's make Oh, there's still something in front of my face. Yo, what's up? Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. And I don't know. I guess the sound is okay. Hello. Sorry about the microphone wiggles. My apologies. Thanks for being here, guys. Thanks for showing up. Appreciate you. Sorry for the very long intro. Take your time. Okay. Yeah, I apologize for that. I just wasn't just coffee. Everything kind of got backed up. Okay. Whoops. Sorry. I don't know what I'm saying. All right, let's get into it because it's already we're already starting off a little bit late. But it's a holiday. Hope you all are enjoying your holiday, or hopefully not working too hard. If you are working, sound and visuals are good. Thank you. A-OK. 5x5. Thanks, guys. Salt Lakers. Coffee was once banned in the 18th century. Governments banned coffee because they thought it encouraged radical thinking, and they were correct. They're absolutely correct. It's a drug, and it's my favorite one. It's my only one, actually. I can't really. Actually, I have two drugs, but the other one, I can't tell you what it is. No, that's not true. I'll tell you what it is. No, I won't. But it's not actually a drug. It's more of like a lifestyle choice. No, I don't know. I've said too much. Forget it. Yeah. Well, back in the day, the whole the history of the sugar trade and the tea trade and the coffee trade. Those things were. It's President's Day, Kamashwari Kate. It's a federal holiday. Everything's closed. Schools are not open. Post offices are not open. Banks are not open. It's a federal holiday. Stock market is not open. Yeah, it's official. So as a consequence, I was not up early today, which is fine because I was tired. Anyways, how much is happening? A whole bunch is happening. Lots of floods going on in the Midwest, or what they might call the Mid-Atlantic region of the United States. And let's get into it. Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia. Am I missing anything else? West Virginia? Is West Virginia getting hit? Trump Day? What holiday is it? Trump Day? Well, yeah. He is currently the president, so there you go. Makes sense. CPM Group has a different perspective of the gold in Fort Knox. I think most of it is actually stored in New York Fed. Precious metal reserve can only be back calculated in CPM Group. Does it? Okay. Well, there is a lot of attention being paid to Fort Knox right now. And that type, I don't know how. I'm not necessarily saying that it does, but there is a confluence between Fort Knox, Kentucky, and floods. The fact that there's floods. It's Family Day in British Columbia. It sounds really wholesome. That's a great title for a holiday. Family Day. Although every day should be Family Day. Every day should be Family Day, absolutely. There is a confluence, and I wasn't even thinking there was a confluence until somebody said, "Hey, there's a confluence between Fort Knox, the discussion about Fort Knox, and the floods in Kentucky." Why are these things happening? I don't know. Look, this is a news show, and I'm just covering the news. I keep trying to tell people that, like, sure, I have opinions about the news. Sure, I have opinions about certain things that are going on. And my opinions are just that. um, about as numerous and necessary as, you know, the saying about opinions. Well, everyone has them. Um, it's family day where you are, Sushi Gang. All right. Anyway, so my opinions are mine, and you can like them or not like them. That's fine. You have opinions. We all have opinions. But I am reporting the news just as I report the news as things that are happening, and also things of interest, things that think people can look at and make their own conclusions from. Sometimes I draw the conclusions for myself. You don't have to agree with my conclusions. It's all good in the neighborhood. Aerial footage captures devastating flooding in Hazard County, Kentucky. Pretty Rumble and on YouTube. I really am trying to quit YouTube, and I don't know how. Yeah, maybe I won't quit YouTube. I don't need the music. But anyways, you guys can see what's going on. Let's get down to where we're actually at. That's happening. I wasn't really trying to start with this. Here's just some more. But we're here. We're here. We're starting with this. Kentucky flooding disaster. Death toll rises to 8. Over 1,000 rescued. Severe flooding devastates Kentucky, submerging entire communities, leaving nearly 40,000 without power and thousands without clean water. Governor Andy Beshear declares it one of the most serious weather events in a decade. One of the most serious weather events in a decade, as officials warn of a potential rise in casualties. I was and still am going to, make this story the focus of the story. The fact that we've been covering this since. If you watch this channel and you're a friend of the channel or you're a fan of the channel, then we cover extreme weather events all the time. Why? Because the climate of the planet is changing, and you can think whatever you can have all the reasons in your head about why that is. I don't really. It's fine with me, but the climate is definitely changing. That is a fact. That's an actual fact that the climate is changing. That weather is becoming more extreme, storms are becoming stronger. If you are not aware that the floods, the severity and the frequency of floods are not increasing, if you're not aware of that, please, just remove the rock from the top of the hole you're living in and take a look around. Please try to be observant. Especially if you're somebody who's a journalist or covering the news, please try to include actual observations of what's happening in your news reporting. Please. It's called reality. I think that's what the news is supposed to be about. Anyway, so extreme weather events are happening, and it's absolutely because the climate of the planet is changing. Because I know people don't want to hear this. We're in there. We're definitely in there, in part of the reason why the climate of the planet is changing. We are absolutely in there. Let me put it to you like this: when there's a very famous story about the taking of lead out of gasoline and the putting of lead in. It's a whole story. The whole story of why they put lead into gasoline and why they took it out is a whole story that I'm not going to cover right now. But the key part of that story is that scientists discovered that all over the planet, lead was everywhere. And it was directly linked to the fact that there was lead in the gasoline that everybody was burning and putting up in the air. That is a very rough idea of how we affect things that are happening on the planet. We absolutely are poisoning the planet, not just with lead, microplastics, everything else. So when, when somebody says the climate of the planet is changing and humans have nothing to do with it, that somehow our small, puny little activities can't have anything to do with it, I will calmly point to the fact that microplastics are invading every corner of the planet, including our brains and testicles and whatever else, and that we have the capability of polluting the planet with lead, that we have the capability of polluting the planet, all kinds of things, right? So, kindly take about 8 steps backward, when you tell me that humans don't have the capability of changing things dramatically on the planet. Okay. I just don't want to hear it. And I just find you to be a disingenuous. I won't go any further. Okay. So things are changing on the planet. This is happening. This is Virginia. Shout out to my friends in Virginia. I hope you're okay. Same with Kentucky. Because fluoride doesn't burn right. And sneaking this one in here just for the extreme weather portion of the show. Whoops, that's not it. Canada, Montreal, Canada, getting plastered by snow at the moment. I'm sure other places. This is just Montreal, but I'm sure other places are getting very heavy with the snow. Um, so it's Canada. So why is this? Where's the weird confluence come? There's been a lot of chatter about Fort Knox, and this is an old story. This is not a new story. This is an old story. This has been talked about for a long time. And I'm tying these together just because it's interesting, and I find things like these interesting. Am I saying, um, let's see, um, am I saying the two are linked? No, I just find that it's very interesting that these things are happening together, and pointing out that they're actually happening together. That's reality. Reality is there's been a lot of chatter about Fort Knox, and Fort Knox, the area where Fort Knox is, just happens to be flooded. That is just interesting. You know, you can call it coincidence. You can call it whatever you want. I'm cool with however you want to look at this. I'd say go ahead and you know take the skepticism out of your mason jar and let it breathe a little bit. All this talk of auditing Fort Knox, and all of a sudden that area is completely flooded. I guess if only I were a conspiracy theorist. So somebody points out it's flooded now. Fort Knox. This is the flood zone, or one of the flood zones, apparently, supposedly, in Kentucky. So that is interesting, don't you think? It's freaking interesting. And there's a whole story about why people think that the gold is gone from Fort Knox. Um, And it also ties back to the fact that they at one time confiscated everyone's gold. So it was it early days of FDR? I know it was in the 30s. Pretty sure it was FDR. U.S. gold seizure. 1933, the United States confiscated gold owned by private citizens. In 1933, President Franklin Roosevelt issued Executive Order 6102, requiring all holders of gold coins, gold bullion, and gold certificates to deposit them at a Federal Reserve Bank. In exchange, and they got paid out 20.67 per ounce. This action was part of a broader gold policy to address the financial crisis of the Great Depression and stabilize the U.S. banking system. Yeah, a lot of people had issues with this. For obvious reasons, because it was like, what? You're going to take my what? My gold? Where is this? Hold on. So let's look. I think look at this clip, which I think goes into this a little about what happened with the gold. A lot of the gold was said to be stored at Fort Knox. Biggest story of the day: Senator Rand Paul is calling for an audit on Fort Knox to ensure the 4,580 tons of gold, U.S. gold, is still there. Here's what you were never told about the gold at Fort Knox. America's wealth, the largest fortune in the history of the world, was stolen. An article was written connecting Rockefeller family and the Federal Reserve. 3 days later, the source was thrown out of a window to her death. So just how did the story of the Fort Knox gold robbery get out? It all started with an article in New York periodical in 1974. The article charged that the Rockefeller family was manipulating the Federal Reserve to sell off Fort Knox gold at bargain basement prices to anonymous European speculators. 3 days later, the anonymous source mysteriously fell to her death. So, also, when did we go off the gold standard? Anybody? That was during the Nixon administration in the early 1970s, right around the time of this story. So that's also creative experiments. FDR actually allowed people to own gold just a certain limit. I mean, what was the limit? How much could they own? Creative experiments. Let's listen to this. This is about 4 minutes.
Naturally, gold prices immediately began to soar. 9 years later, gold sold for $880 per ounce, 25 times what the gold in Fort Knox was sold for. One would think that eventually someone in the government would get wind of what was happening and blow the whistle. The largest fortune in the history of the world stolen. Shades of the old James Bond film, Goldfinger. Well, as a matter of fact, Ian Fleming, the author of the James Bond series, was head of the British counterintelligence service, MI5. Some believe in the intelligence community that he wrote much of his fiction as a warning, as many authors of fiction do. If the removal of all the good delivery gold from Fort Knox can be viewed as a deliberate raid on the U.S. Treasury, then such an operation might well have been years in the making, namely 40 years. Certainly enough time for Fleming to get wind of it and try to prevent it. So just how did the story of the Fort Knox gold robbery get out? It all started with an article in a New York periodical in 1974. The article charged that the Rockefeller family was manipulating the Federal Reserve to sell off Fort Knox gold at bargain basement prices to anonymous European speculators. 3 days later, the anonymous source of the story, Louise Auchincloss Boyer, mysteriously fell to her death from the window of her 10th floor apartment in New York. How would Mrs. Boyer have known of the Rockefeller connection to the Fort Knox gold heist? She was the longtime secretary of Nelson Rockefeller. For the next 14 years, this man, Ed Durrell, a wealthy Ohio industrialist, devoted himself to a quest for the truth concerning the Fort Knox gold. He wrote thousands of letters to over 1,000 government and banking officials, trying to find out how much gold was really left and where the rest of it had gone. Edith Roosevelt, the granddaughter of President Teddy Roosevelt, questioned the actions of the government in a March 1975 edition of the New Hampshire Sunday News. Allegations of missing gold from our Fort Knox vaults are being widely discussed in European financial circles. But what is puzzling is that the administration is not hastening to demonstrate conclusively that there is no cause for concern over our gold treasure, if indeed it is in a position to do so. Unfortunately, Ed Durrell never did accomplish his primary goal, a full audit of the gold reserves in Fort Knox. It's incredible that the world's greatest treasure has had little accounting or auditing. This gold belonged to the American people, not the Federal Reserve and their foreign owners. One thing is certain, the government could blow all of this speculation away in a few days with a well-publicized audit under the searing lights of media cameras. It has chosen not to do so.
They won't do it.
One must conclude that they are afraid of the truth such an audit would reveal. What is the government so afraid of? Here's the answer. When President Ronald Reagan took office in 1981, his conservative friends urged him to study the feasibility of returning to a gold standard as the only way to curb government spending. It sounded like a reasonable alternative, so President Reagan appointed a group of men called the Gold Commission to study the situation and report back to Congress. What Reagan's Gold Commission reported back to Congress in 1982 was the following shocking revelation concerning gold. The U.S. Treasury owned no gold at all. All the gold that was left in Fort Knox was now owned by the Federal Reserve, a group of private bankers, as collateral against the national debt. The truth of the matter is that never before has so much money been stolen from the hands of the general public and put into the hands of a small group of private investors, the money changers.
Well, okay. They needed a commission. They needed a commission to study the problem. They didn't, they needed a commission to get, Billy Bob Bojangles to get a flashlight or a miner's cap, walk through the door and go, hey, where's the gold? Have you seen the gold? That was a commission. They needed a commission to do that. Hello? Anybody home? Okay. It's ridiculous. So is that interesting? I don't know. I don't think of it what you will. I'm just saying it's interesting. Yeah. You can buy the gold and own the gold today. You can own, yeah. Are there limits to what you can own personally today? I'm not sure. Let's see if there's a limit today on what you can own. There are no federal restrictions on the amount of gold an individual can own. Well, so I guess they just, at one time they just wanted to take everybody's gold to balance, to help shore up. I guess that makes sense, but it kind of sucks, right? Isn't that like bail-ins? It's just like bail-ins. The idea that the money you have in the bank is not necessarily yours, and that in a bad enough crisis, the government can and has the authority to freeze everything that's in your bank account and literally just take it if they need it. If they're like, yep, we are going to be insolvent in a couple days, and we're going to need, whatever you have in the bank, that's ours. They absolutely have the authority, the power, and the wherewithal to do that if they need to. So take that information and do with it what you will. So yeah. So yeah. Interesting stuff, don't you think? Let's see. I'm gonna read this real quick. This was posted by Obsolete Optics. Tag me in this and we'll look at this real quick. This is from someone named Smiling Dawn the Fatalist. The truth about slashing the federal workforce, as is what is happening now with the Doge team and the Trump people. The truth about slashing the federal workforce is that it doesn't even matter. The American government is headed for a debt collapse, cutting the Department of Education down, leaving only the WWE wrestlers that save 7 seconds of borrowing over the next decade. Suspending all foreign aid, 9 hours of borrowing. See what I mean? If 46,000 federal workers take their buyout, it saves 3 seconds of borrowing. In case you wanted to know what the inbreeds aren't telling you, so far, they have solved 9 hours and 12 seconds of borrowing over the next 10 years. You can't overspend for 70 years and then solve it in 5 years. You can't create a Reaganomics zero child policy that spans nearly 5 decades and then undo it. So this is interesting. He's saying, and this is a take I wasn't really aware of, or Reaganomics zero child policy. That Reaganomics was about lowering the population. Okay. But let's read on. A zero child policy that spans, because the population has not been lowered. So I'm just pointing that out. 5 decades later. Zero child policy that spans nearly 5 decades and then undo it. Slashing the government needed to take place 18 years ago. Slashing the government needed to take place 18 years ago alongside a public welfare program to boost family growth. I'm reading this, and I'm also I've read it already, and I've been thinking about it. I agree. Creative experiments. Yes, I'm with you on that one. About the gold price. Slashing the government needed to take place 18 years ago alongside a public welfare program to boost family growth. So I'm just, I know that we have dropping fertility rates. That has more to do with the poisoning of the people on the planet. So I'm trying to think about this and dissect what he's saying a little bit. But we'll read on. This is what Democrats and Republicans don't want to hear. You sucked a B movie actor's D so hard you doomed the population to zero growth. Now that's not enough. There's not enough tax revenue to sustain the neoliberal version of their little world. In a lot of countries, people are figuring this out or have figured it out. Europe is leaning into it because it's already so crowded. Good for them, I guess. But the United States is deeply in denial, and it is so pathetic. From an outside observer's eye, neoliberalism is failing and being replaced all over the world, and the people doing it also can't tell you why. They don't correlate their demographics to bad policy at all. So it's unthinkable in the US. If someone had told people in the 80s that Thatcher and Reagan were going to create a demographic collapse with austerity, Hinckley probably would have went to the range a few times and practiced. Austerity, privatization, deregulation of the banking sector to induce parasitic growth of bloodsucking. Okay. If war games had been about dealing with actual threats to humanity, it would have been a totally different video game. The first guy to reach $1 trillion in net worth from being a federal welfare queen. True story, doesn't have any understanding of how to manage trillions in debt and overextension because he barely had to earn any of the money. You don't solve the revenue problem by solving the revenue problem. You solve it by stopping the cycle of tax cuts for rich Nimrods, and you focus on the demographic problem. Then the revenue problem solves itself. I'm still kind of a little confused about this guy's point of view, and I'm just being honest. I'm trying to understand where he's coming from, and I understand what he's saying. I just don't understand what his viewpoint is based on, or what he supports. Obviously, he supports family growth and population growth, which has been happening anyways. So I'm a little confused. I'm confused. I mean, is he saying this is happening as a long standing endeavor to have a population collapse? I mean, and he's kind of basing it on the idea that the population, so this is true. So an economic collapse of biblical proportions would doom a lot of people to death. And that's absolutely true. Like when you have an economic collapse, people die. They die because they don't have a house, don't have food, don't have shelter, can't get away from the elements, and not prepared in any way, shape, or form to play survival games. So on that level, he's correct, right? On the level of we're going to allow these people to just amass so much wealth that they're going to just wreck everything. And that's going to end up taking a lot of people out. On that level, sure, I agree. If he's saying that this has been an ongoing, I guess on another level, I could agree that maybe, austerity or the lack of the ability for people to have families to pay, because it's so darn expensive. And that is a thing that's absolutely kicking in. But, there's a lot of people out there with, they have enough money, they're going to have 6 kids. And I see plenty of those people out there just I got a good job. I'm able to afford a house and, a couple of cars and a wife and, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 kids. That's what I'm doing. There's lots of people out there doing that. There's also lots of people that are there's no way in hell I'm going to have a kid because I can't afford myself. How can I afford another being? So I am just confused at this take, but I'll read on. The government is borrowing roughly 7% of the total economy every year just to keep going. When Donald the Great MAGA is out of office, the government will be borrowing 9% of the total economy just to keep going, regardless of whether Oprah guests take over or not. Regardless of whether Triple H is deciding the curriculum. If all school children, I don't get this one or not. I don't know. I think that's a typo. Keeping wages stagnant and financializing the economy, turning it into a service economy controlled by parasites. This is what doomed America, not DEI. Too many people are too dumb to understand it. The thing about, well, and I agree with this statement. This is absolutely true. He's right. There's, we don't have a lot of self-sufficiency here right now, and we don't incentivize the self-sufficiency among the people. We do not. The thing about the demographics chart I posted, or the country for that matter, the thing about the demographics chart I posted is that it is a death spiral. Not enough new workers in the workforce translates to more debt and less growth, which translates to lower wages, which translates to more debt and less growth and even fewer workers and so on. Do you want to go back and look at these? Projected job growth tumbles. U.S. employment gains will slow significantly and be more concentrated across fewer sectors in the decade through 2032 as population growth moderates. Is that why Elon is out telling people to have babies? He's got 13. I mean, this is all based on, this is also what this guy is too dumb to understand is that this is all based on things growing forever, which unfortunately this guy is too dumb to understand that things cannot grow forever. It just doesn't matter whether you're talking about economically or environmentally. He just can't grow forever, dude. So I don't know what you're encouraging people to get back onto the growth train. Yes, Salt Lakers, as you said, or going south. Sorry, is it Salt Lakers or going south? Going south. It can't grow forever, dude. And you kind of missed that point, but whatever. The population growth mix is expected to, this is what's weird to me is people who still think that things are going to go on. As somebody was talking about financializing, there's a lot of talk about Bitcoin being used to refinancialize our debt. And I was listening to a conversation and the guy said something, after he was talking about refinancializing the debt or doing it through Bitcoin and stable coins. And he said, in 300 or 500 years, we're going to see, I'm like, dude, what do you, 300 or 500 years, this is going to mean this. And I was like, nothing now is going to mean anything in 300 or 500 years. So why even make that, like the fact that you think something we do now is going to go forward 300 or 500 years and actually like, there's going to be a straight line. No, there's not. There's no straight line from here to 300 or 500 years. No way. There's, small collapses or super collapses. And then there's a reimagining of the whole rejiggering of the whole thing or reimagining of the entire everything. That's all there is in the next 300 or 500 years. There is not a straight line. Sorry if you don't know that or don't understand that. But it's already too late for that. That's what the Democrats and Republicans can't admit. The procrastinator parties ruin the country, and now it's too late unless general intelligence is invented. It becomes the sole property of the U.S. government and American companies. The government is borrowing roughly 7% of total economy. I mean, and what the thing he's saying about the debt and where we're going is also correct. I mean, we're in a death spiral, a debt spiral, a death spiral, and we're the chances that we survive this are not good. So never say never. Maybe we do. Maybe we find a way out. Maybe something happens. Maybe there's, I don't know, some mega genius comes forward and saves us all. Or a few mega geniuses or a few, or maybe some people can get band together and figure out a parallel economy and save themselves, but we're not getting out of this. We are not getting out of this. I'm sorry to tell you that. We're not escaping a collapse scenario. I'm sorry to tell you that. the faster that you understand that, the faster you can align yourself with the very probable future. I'm not saying that, things won't bump along okay for a couple of decades, maybe 10, or maybe we got 10 years, maybe we got 20 to bump along in our current system before things really start looking like, whoa, this is weird, or I don't have any food, or whatever. So keep bumping along. But I'm just saying, eventually you're going to have to be doing something different. Rhodesians thought they would exist in 300 years. Yes, right. French thought they could occupy Haiti and Russia for 300 years. Yeah, 300 years. Like, come on. We're not even 300 years old, this country. And look where we're at. Very, and the likelihood that we make it to 300 years is just absolutely, on the possibility spreadsheet is very low. Very, very low. Skank. I don't know. I'm going to keep. I got to move on to some other things before the end of the show. The United States, as you know it, is effectively over. It'll drag along for about 10 more years, but when Social Security's trust is empty, that's when Democrats and Republicans become public enemy number one. The only thing left to do is create a solid analysis now and push it into the mainstream. So they can't change the narrative later and make themselves appear innocent, even though they kept their hands on the wheel the entire time. It is absolutely the two parties at fault. And probably a big reason why Trump is here right now is like, he is a chaos agent. Very low trust. We're entering in a time when we're going to be living in a very low trust society, even though right now we're still a very high trust society. But it's going to get very low soon. And whether Trump is just a catalyst to shake things, to break things up for the possible coming future, or whether it's just a last gasp of empire. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one, honestly. On the surface, it looks like the last gasp of empire, but underneath, he's doing a lot of things that the people have talked about, future visions of what the world is going to look like. Very different world, right? He's enabling the mechanisms to and to usher in a brave new world order, right? If you thought social unrest is bad now, wait until Democrats and Republicans have to take responsibility for not looking at the boomer explosion created in the 50s and taking time out of their pants-dropping schedule of graft to make tiny adjustments to Social Security. Imagine how 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 years olds are going to feel when they don't make enough to save for retirement, but also have to pay for boomers to empty out Social Security and then die, leaving everyone else with no options. It's time to start having that discussion, so there's no way to kill it later. To circle back to the way I began, if you let Trump tax cuts expire, that's like 20 plus days of borrowing saved over 10 years. The government is borrowing 7% of the total economy every year to keep going. That means 390 days of borrowing over the next 3,700 days. Making cuts that reduce the borrowing 10 and 20 days at a time is the way to go. That's the only way to get to 400 days. Trying to grab seconds by fighting woke is pretending to do something. If you need to get to 400 days in order to account for interest, which will force a jump to borrowing of 9% of the total economy every year within 4 years. Yeah, sounds pretty bleak. But maybe I just don't understand what he's saying enough to... align with it, but Chuck's intergalactic UFO show. It's bad enough Elmo keeps launching satellites in orbit that my ship needs to dodge, but his dumbass doesn't even know how the U.S. monetary system works. Austerity is dumb. Um, yeah, it's not the way to go. You want to start, you want to do something significant, start taxing, start just taxing these wealthy, start going after their bank accounts, their offshore accounts, start really cracking on these billionaires and, right. So having a billionaire oversee the overhauling of the spending is not the way to go, because he's not, we need somebody who's going to be willing to crack on these billionaires and not on federal workers necessarily. Although, sure. I mean, is there waste? Is there corruption? Is there graft? Is there fraud? Of course. Is there money laundering? Of course. But yeah, the best thing we could do is confiscate wealth from the wealthy. And, hey, you got, you can keep a couple mil, 500, shit, keep a couple $100 million, bro. That's plenty for you to live out your days and bequeath it all to your children and all that kind of stuff. But we're just going to take the other, 968 billion or whatever dollars you got, and wham, debt gone, debt relief, instant debt relief, confiscation of wealth from billionaires, instant debt relief. Absolutely. And then leave the people alone. Help the people. So, and okay. I'll finish up with just a general, because we're going to miss a part of this show that I wanted to do on the marching forward of the relinquishing of free speech. But while we're talking about financials, and why we're talking about the reason why some people are behind what this government is doing or cheering it on, is because this administration is messaging better than the Democrats. And if you think the Democrats aren't trying hard enough, it's because they're not trying hard enough on purpose. As somebody said, they are the Harlem Globetrotters of Congress, right? Or not the Washington Generals, excuse me. The Harlem Globetrotters are the Republicans, or the right wing, whatever, who's ever doing right wing stuff. The oligarchs, we'll call it. Globetrotters are the oligarchs, because that makes sense, right? Globetrotters. The wealthy, the people that run everything, that run the show, that make all the decisions, and then tell, left or right to do their bidding, and then they do their bidding. But it's the Democrats that are like, oh yeah, totally, we're going to act like we're playing the game, but man, we just couldn't pull it off. These guys are just too good. Right. But the Republicans are actually doing a better message, better in the messaging department, which is what I've been trying to say for months now. People are mad at me for saying, like, the Democrats look like crap, and the Republicans are walking all over them, and they're going to win, and they're going to do whatever they want. It's because the Democrats are like, oh, I don't know what to do. And just supporting the Democrats blind, just saying like, well, you just got to support the Democrats because something. No, you don't. You do not. You do not have to support the Washington Generals because they're losing so badly. I don't know what this is. Is this Cleveland Browns syndrome? What do you want to call it? Do people love to support losers? Do people love to support, to, I don't know why. Democrat strategists tell CNN that Trump is winning because he sounds like a 1990s Democrat. And that's absolutely true. I've been trying to say this, and they're saying it out loud, and they're saying it on national television. Like, I said this many times over and over. The Republicans are messaging in a populist way, in a way that appeals to people, that makes people feel like they care about them. Now, I'm not saying they care about them. Okay, please try to keep up. Please try to keep up with what I'm saying is that they look like they care. That doesn't mean that I think that they care. There are some things they are doing that I think are positives, or they look positive, and I'm kind of cautiously saying, like, well, if they can actually do this, I would think this would be a good thing. Okay. And I'm not going to be negative towards something that I feel like is a positive. That would just doesn't make any sense. Right. If somebody actually was like, I'm going to do this social welfare program, I'm going to do something that's good for the people, and they actually do it, I would go, well, okay, thanks for doing something good for the people. Appreciate you. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean I support the administration or believe that they're going to do anything that will help the people in the long run. That's not what I'm saying. Please. I hope if you don't think otherwise, I don't know what to tell you. I'm saying the words, and hopefully they're making sense. Democrat strategists tell CNN that Trump is winning because he sounds like a 1990s Democrat. I joined the Democratic Party in 1989 because I wanted to fight NAFTA. I wanted to drain the swamp. I wanted to make sure that my tax dollars weren't going to foreign wars or wasted. That is, old school lefty Democrat policy, at least, trying. That sounds like Donald Trump today. That's why we lose to him, is we let him steal our verbiage. He's correct.
My question is, Donald Trump is a very scary guy. What makes him so popular?
Chuck, you want to take that one?
This is my favorite question. We've talked about it on this program before. I joined the Democratic Party in 1989 because I wanted to fight NAFTA. I wanted to drain the swamps. I wanted to make sure that my tax dollars weren't going to foreign wars or wasted. I give you that one, Brian. And that sounds like Donald Trump today. That's why we lose to him, is we've let him steal our verbiage. We have quit talking about working America's, keeping America safe, doing the things that we did when I joined this party. And that's the reason he is scary. But he's not scary to enough people to lose elections because he sounds like the Democrats, and why I joined this party.
My question is, Donald.
And he's just reiterating like things I've said a bunch of times. If you appeal to people on things that they care about, you're going to win elections. It doesn't mean that you have, you're a politician, and when is a politician lying? When their mouth is open, right? How can, the joke, the joke, that's how politicians win elections. They do a better job of messaging, of lying, or making people believe that what they're saying is true and correct, and has heartfelt messaging behind it. And sorry, but Trump just did a better job of that. The Republicans just did a better job of that. That's why they won. And the Democrats just couldn't stop looking terrible, and they still can't stop looking terrible. And I'm waiting for people to hold them accountable instead of, telling people that they were dumb for not voting for them. That's not the way. And it's, messaging like this that actually, wins people's hearts and minds. Love him or hate him, RFK Jr. is part of that messaging that's winning people over. And you could be absolutely furious at RFK for whatever reasons you want to. I'm just pointing out that his presence and his messaging are things that appeal to people because, you know, there's a certain amount of logic
worried about these kind of products.
Seed oils are one of the most unhealthy ingredients that we have in foods, and seed oils.
So he's talking about seed oils. The FDA kills over 1 million Americans every year without firing a single shot, and the weapon is not the food itself, but what's in it. And, you know, he's just talking about, you know, he's bringing something to light. I saw one of my friends on Facebook, several friends, I don't know, saying stuff about RFK Jr. that was like, I'm like, I don't know where you're getting your information, but nothing that you're saying is actually true and correct. You know, it was like it was opposite land. You know, RFK Jr. is going to pump you. It was just weird. Pump you full of vaccines and make poisoning your food legal. I'm just like, but that's the opposite of what his message is. Have you actually listened to RFK, or are you just reading like bizarro lefty articles about RFK? Like, do you actually listen to his messages? I don't know. Again, think what you want about him. If you don't trust him, that's fine. There's plenty to not trust about this administration. Plenty to not trust. But at least, you know, try and go to the source. If you feel some kind of way about somebody, at least, you know, listen to what they're saying. Or, and this is, you know, sorry to tell you this. Sorry if this is going to bother people. This is a winning message. I don't know if this is going to happen. I don't know if this is going to happen, but this is, you know, makes people jump up and down and cheer for the team, for the red team. Newly confirmed HHS Secretary RFK Jr. is recommending President Trump ban Big Pharma from TV advertising. This is the nail in the coffin to the MSM. 75% of advertising dollars on cable news comes from pharma. Which is freaking, you know, would be amazing if it happened. Is it going to happen? I don't know. Well, not just advertising dollars for Big Pharma, but control over the messaging, right? You can't actually tell the truth about what Big Pharma is selling, because they are, you know, if they're the team it's funding your operation, CNN or MSNBC or Fox, even Fox News or whoever, if they're funding your operation, you're not going to be able to talk about certain things, right? That just makes sense. So if you ban them from advertising, this is actually a freaking genius move if they can do it. Again, healthy amount of skepticism on my part. So, you know.
And, you know, one of the things I'm going to advise Donald Trump to do in order to correct the chronic disease epidemic is to ban pharmaceutical advertising on TV.
And the crowd goes wild. Why are they so popular? Why is that stadium full of people? Because they're saying things that align with what people actually care about. Democrats don't even try. The Democrats are like living in an alternate reality. They don't even try. Their message is Trump is crazy, or a Nazi or something. That's their messaging. It's just like demonizing the other side and not actually offering people like just basically things that make sense. Like, we can do this and this would be good for people. Like, they can't even say that, because you know why? Because they know it's like they can't even go that far. So it's interesting. It's interesting. Anna Mares on Rockfin. Delta Airlines just crashed. What the heck? From Minneapolis to Toronto. Holy, yeah, there's a lot of plane crashes. They really don't want us flying. plane allegedly upside down on the tarmac, followed by pictures. Whoa. Dang. Yeah, it's a lot of plane crashes. Hold on one second. Let me see if we can see this. Delta plane flips over while landing in Toronto. 8 people were injured, no fatalities. Well, that's good. I hope the injuries are not too bad, but it is concerning. There seems to be a lot of issues with being up in the sky. Holy shnikes.
I haven't seen them in years.
Do you think Animairs, they really don't want us flying? Sorry. Sorry about that. Oh, can you guys see this? Yeah, you can. Yeah, that's.
Yes, I do. I call you back when I now. So I can help edit Karen, whether it be for now or for later. I can stay and help out.
Crazy. I don't know. I mean, I hear you. It does seem like a scarier proposition to get in a plane these days. And also just, well, expensive. Expensive and not very, less. I mean, I don't know. I know people that fly all the time and they don't seem to have, but it's probably less, I guess, smooth as it used to be, less efficient. I see people experiencing more problems with, whatever, connecting flights or flights getting canceled. That seems to be on that stuff seems to be on the rise too. And that was happening over the last couple of years, right? That's been a progression. Or is it just the the airline industry is like every other thing on the planet in that it's just becoming overcrowded, overcomplicated, really expensive, tough to keep going, at scale. I don't know. Sure. The more we travel, the more empathetic we become to people outside our bubble. Yeah. Flying to Colorado last year wasn't like nightmare. Oh no. Yeah, I went on one plane trip last year to Puerto Rico, and getting back was no fun. The flight, we made it there, but man, the whole trip back was like, oh my God, it was the worst. Plane got canceled. We had to sleep in the airport. Spent, I don't know how many hours in the airport. Freaking, 11 hours sleeping in a very uncomfortable chair because they wouldn't give us a hotel room. It just was kind of a nightmare. You think the planes are being hacked by Democrats? I mean, I don't know. Also, Boeing, the whole thing with Boeing was due to, what looks like cost-cutting maneuvers. at the expense of safety. Plain and simple. Like things are not running the way, things are getting, the goods and services you're paying for that are getting way more expensive are also getting crappier. Like that's just true everywhere you look. Everywhere you look, you're getting less quality and less value and spending just more, it's exponentially more for crappier things. And why would the airline industry be any different? You're just getting crappier stuff and paying more for it. And the ability for companies to deliver like quality service and or products is getting more difficult because the overhead is just skyrocketing. And it's, I don't know where it ends. But taxing, taking a majority of billionaires' wealth would be the start of all of that, of stopping that spiral. Let's stay on topic. let's keep our eyes on the goal, on the ball. Southwest Airlines to DIA. I thought I would die. Oh no, sorry. I'm sorry. All right, I'm gonna have to save whatever I didn't cover today for tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you want to support the show, there's ways to support the show in all of the description boxes of every channel you're watching on. Rockfin, Rumble, and YouTube. All the links are there. There's Zelle, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, Ko-Fi. I don't know that I received anything over the weekend, but or today. I just don't know. I don't think so. Anyways, I do air this show Monday through Friday, and for free. I do it for free. Do not charge anything. It's completely free to you to view and to share. And so I operate on your donations. So if you would like to see the show continuing to come to you in the manner that it does, or in some form or fashion in the way that it does every day for free, I encourage you to consider supporting the show. Many of you already support the show. You know who you are, and I thank you. All right. I'll see you all tomorrow at the regular time. Let's try and come out of here. Or not. Maybe my buttons aren't working anymore. Are my buttons not working anymore? No. That's the problem with Rumble. My buttons stopped working. Crapo. Right at the end of the show, too. Well, anyways, guys, thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow. And we will reconvene and talk about it all some more. All right. Thanks, Anna Maris. I appreciate that. Okay. Peace out, guys. See if these buttons work. Are they going to let me get out of here without an issue? No, I don't think so. Gosh darn it. All right. Well, I'll have to see you guys. Can't play anything out, so we'll see you tomorrow.